Sarah Lawson never thought life would be this hard. At 28, she was pregnant and completely alone. Her parents had died in a car accident years ago, and the man she thought she could trust, her husband, walked out the second she told him about the baby. He didn't want the responsibility, leaving Sarah to figure everything out on her own. Now she was stuck in a tiny, run-down apartment in New York City, barely keeping up with rent. Every day felt like a battle just to survive. She worked long, exhausting shifts at a small diner, serving people who barely noticed her. No matter how hard she tried, it was never enough. Bills piled up, the stress weighed on her, and with a baby on the way, the fear never left her mind. She wasn't just struggling, she was drowning, and no one was there to help. Every morning, Emily Walker pushed through her exhaustion, tying her apron and forcing a smile. The small diner where she worked was always packed, early risers grabbing coffee, office workers rushing in for breakfast. She had memorized their orders, learned to carry heavy trays without shaking, and perfected the art of pretending she wasn't completely drained. But the truth was, she was exhausted. Long hours, low pay, and aching feet were just part of her reality. She had no choice but to keep going. Rent was due. Bills piled up. And with a baby on the way, she had no time to rest. Wealthy customers walked in, talking about vacations and expensive cars, things Emily would never have. She wasn't part of their world. She was just another nameless worker, invisible to them. But no matter how hard things got, she had to push through. She had no other option. Today felt different. There was a buzz in the diner, a nervous energy among the staff. The reason? Daniel Kingston, the billionaire hotel owner, was coming in for breakfast. He was famous for being ruthless, a man who built his empire with sharp decisions and an even sharper attitude. Emily didn't care much for the rich. They lived in a different world, one where people like her didn't exist. So when her manager assigned her to serve him, she just sighed and got to work. To her, he was just another customer. Her shift had already drained her. The nausea from her pregnancy was getting worse, and skipping meals to save money wasn't helping. She was running on empty, but she couldn't afford to slow down. As she picked up Daniel Kingston's order, she took a deep breath. She just had to get through one more table. Emily forced herself to keep moving, even though her body begged her to stop. She hadn't eaten much, and the exhaustion from working non-stop was catching up to her. As she carried a heavy tray toward Daniel Kingston's table, a sudden wave of dizziness hit. Her vision blurred, her knees wobbled, and before she could steady herself, plates shattered across the floor. The entire diner went silent. Emily's heart pounded as every eye in the room focused on her. Heat rushed to her face. Her manager stormed over, his face red with anger. "Are you kidding me? Do you know who you just embarrassed us in front of?" His voice was loud, cruel. Tears burned in Emily's eyes, but she refused to cry. She crouched down, hands shaking as she picked up the broken pieces. She had made a mistake, one she couldn't afford. The weight of humiliation crushed Emily as she hurried to clean up the shattered plates. Her manager's harsh words still rang in her ears, each one stinging like a slap. The other customers whispered among themselves, some with pity, others with judgment. She felt like a spectacle, like she didn't belong. But as all eyes stared at her, one person remained completely still. Daniel Kingston. He didn't react. He didn't flinch. He just sat there, calmly sipping his coffee as if nothing had happened. His face gave away nothing, no anger, no sympathy, nothing. Emily's hands shook as she picked up the last broken piece. Her heart pounded, but she kept her head down and forced herself to keep moving. She had no time for embarrassment. She had bills to pay, and her baby needed her to be strong. That was the only thing that mattered. Hours later, Emily finally caught a moment to breathe. She was exhausted, her body aching from the long shift. The embarrassment from earlier still clung to her, but she pushed it aside. She had no choice. As she wiped down a table, her eyes landed on something unusual. There, where Daniel Kingston had been sitting, was an envelope. Frowning, she hesitated before picking it up. At first, she thought it was just a tip. But when she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a note, written in crisp, careful handwriting. This is your tip. Use it to rest and take care of yourself. You deserve better than this. Confused, she unfolded the check tucked inside and gasped. It wasn't just any tip. It was an amount far beyond anything she had ever seen. And at the bottom of the note, one more line: "There's a job waiting for you at my hotel if you want it." Emily stared at the check, her hands trembling. This had to be a mistake. Why would Daniel Kingston, a billionaire, offer her this? Did he feel sorry for her? Was it some kind of trick? Her mind raced with questions, but one thought kept returning. This could change everything. For years, she had fought just to survive. She had learned to expect nothing, to accept struggle as her reality. But now, an opportunity was in her hands, one she had never imagined. She could leave the diner, leave behind the exhaustion, the endless stress. The job offer was right there. But then, fear crept in. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? The doubt was suffocating. Yet deep down, another voice whispered, "What if this is my chance?" That night, as she lay in bed, staring at the check, Emily made her choice. Tomorrow, she would walk into Kingston hotels the next morning. Emily took a deep breath and stepped into the massive glass skyscraper of Kingston hotels. Her heart pounded as she walked through the gleaming lobby. Everything about this place screamed luxury, something she had never been a part of. The receptionist glanced at her, then picked up the phone. Moments later, Emily was led to the top floor, where Daniel Kingston's office awaited. As she entered, she felt small in the grand space. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a breathtaking view of the city. The sleek furniture, the soft hum of an air conditioner, everything felt surreal. Behind a large desk, Daniel sat, watching her with an unreadable expression. "You came," he said simply. Emily swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm ready for this." Daniel leaned back, a small smile forming. "You wouldn't be here if you weren't." And just like that, her life was about to change. Emily took a shaky breath as she stood in front of Daniel Kingston's massive desk. His sharp eyes studied her, making her feel both nervous and curious. Why had he chosen her? "I don't understand," she admitted. "Why offer me this job? I have no experience in managing a hotel." Daniel leaned back, his expression calm. "I don't hire based on fancy degrees. I hire people with resilience. I saw how you handled yourself yesterday. You didn't give up, even when the world tried to knock you down." Emily blinked. She had spent so long believing she wasn't good enough. Could this really be her chance? I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. Daniel's gaze softened. "You don't have to know everything. You just have to start." For the first time in years, Emily felt something unfamiliar: hope.